7. Signs they are preparing you for a rare role among the dark chosen ones. If you're watching this, it means something inside you has already begun to stir. Not the part of you that wants to feel special, not the part that's chasing power, light, or validation. No, I'm talking about the part of you that remembers. Even if you can't name what it's remembering yet, even if it comes only in flashes, in dreams, in strange synchronicities, in that feeling of being watched not by someone, but by something ancient, something intelligent, something that has been observing you in silence, not with judgment, but with intention. And if you've felt that, if you've noticed the fabric of your life stretching in unnatural ways, then you need to understand this. You're being prepared for something very few will ever be able to comprehend, let alone carry. You are being readied for a role that exists outside the boundaries of religion, morality, or even spiritual tradition. You are being marked as one of the dark chosen. Now, before we go any further, you need to understand something very clearly. Darkness here does not mean evil. It does not mean wickedness or destruction. It means depth. It means the hidden realms, the unseen mechanics of reality, the parts of existence too raw, too powerful, too uncontrollable to be packaged into love and light affirmations or perfectly curated spiritual aesthetics. The dark chosen ones are not here to fit in. They are not here to preach peace. They are here to intervene, to walk into the systems of illusion and trigger collapse, revelation, and rebirth. And they, those ancient forces beyond understanding, have been watching your soul across lifetimes to see if you're capable of that kind of burden, that kind of assignment.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lesson.
Here's the first sign. Your life has never made linear sense. You've never truly belonged, not in your family, not in your community, not even in most spiritual circles. You've always carried a sense of being other. And while that might have once felt like isolation, it's actually the signature of someone being kept outside the algorithm, because if you had been fully accepted into the matrix of normalcy, you would have been too comfortable to awaken. So your pain, your rejection, your loneliness, they were not accidents. They were designs. The universe, or rather the architects behind the veil, needed you to walk alone long enough to stop seeking yourself in others. That solitude wasn't punishment. It was preparation. Have you noticed how chaos seems to follow you more than others? Not just random misfortune, but meaningful breakdowns, friendships that implode without warning, jobs that vanish right when you thought stability was near, emotional spirals that seem to come from nowhere. This is not just bad luck, it's calibration, because before you can be entrusted with a rare role among the dark chosen, all the false structures in your life must be dismantled. You cannot carry the signature of the system while being tasked to disrupt it. So what you thought were losses were actually surgical removals. The universe was stripping away everything that could dilute your frequency. That's not cruelty, that's precision. Another sign, perhaps the most disturbing one, is that you've felt things you can't explain. You've had dreams that felt more real than waking life. You've encountered entities, sometimes terrifying, sometimes comforting, and you've questioned your sanity more times than you'd ever admit out loud. Good. That's part of the test. If you are to walk between worlds, you must be willing to lose your grip on this one. Not permanently, not destructively, but temporarily, so your mind can open like a gate and receive what logic cannot contain. They will often destabilize your reality just enough to see how you respond. Will you cling to safety, or will you lean into the unknown? Your response determines what level of initiation you're ready for. There's also the sign of irreversible awakenings. You've had moments where something cracked open inside you, maybe during a crisis, maybe in a moment of stillness, and you saw through the illusion. You saw how everything is energy, how time folds, how reality bends to focus. But then it faded, and you've spent years trying to get back to that feeling. That's because they gave you a glimpse, a single drop of what you're here to become, a flash of your own power, just enough to ignite the hunger but not enough to feed it fully. That hunger is their way of pulling you forward. Every time you try to go back to normal, to forget what you saw, life becomes unbearable. That's not failure, that's the mark. You've been tagged by something that no longer allows you to sleep. And maybe the strangest sign of all, you've always had a relationship with shadow. Even when you were trying to be pure, to be good, to be light, there was always a gnawing voice inside you, a desire for more. Not more pleasure, but more truth. Even the ugly truth. You've always wanted to tear the mask off things, to see what's beneath, to touch the forbidden. That's not corruption, that's curiosity, the kind of curiosity that only the chosen carry, because they know that truth is not always wrapped in beauty. Sometimes truth comes covered in blood, in silence, in madness. And still you reach for it. Still you want to know. Still you say, show me what's real, even if it shatters me. So let me ask you this now, and I want you to answer not with your mind, but with your soul. What if the very things that broke you were not setbacks, but signals? What if your misfit life, your emotional chaos, your spiritual confusion, what if all of it was a language, a secret code that only the marked can hear? And what if you've been decoding it all along without even realizing it? Because the truth is, you have. Every breakdown was a transmission. Every sleepless night, a download. Every strange moment of déjà vu. Every time you felt watched. Every time you felt pulled to the occult, to ancient symbols, to forbidden knowledge. It was them, not watching you, activating you, slowly, strategically, silently, preparing you for a role that no one else could carry without going mad. And the preparation isn't done yet. The next layer is deeper, more dangerous, more divine, because now that you're aware something is happening, the question becomes, will you respond, or will you retreat into the illusion of normalcy? The bleeding edge of destiny, why you're being broken into power. There's something the ancient ones never wrote down, something the mystics whispered only in the dark, something the sacred texts left between the lines because if it were said too clearly, the unready would misinterpret it and the ready might still run. It's this. Before you can embody divine power, you must be broken by it. Not because suffering is noble, not because hardship is a spiritual badge, but because the vessel must be shattered before it can hold a higher voltage of truth. You cannot channel rare energy through a structure built for survival. And if you've been feeling like life has been dismantling you piece by piece, tearing you from identity, security, logic, and even sanity, then I need you to know this isn't destruction, it's refinement. You are not falling apart, you are being reshaped on the bleeding edge of your own destiny. We've been taught to fear the breaking, to label suffering as punishment, to see confusion as weakness. But the dark chosen ones know better. We know that the cracks are where the light and the shadow enter. We know we weren't sent here to be comfortable. We were sent here to remember. And sometimes remembering means being stripped of everything that made us forget. Relationships that end without closure. Recreationships that end without closure. Careers that collapse overnight. Health that spirals for no medical reason. Emotional storms that hit without logic. These aren't accidents. They're initiations. And the more rare your role, the more volatile the refinement must be, because you're not preparing for a normal life. You're preparing to carry a signal that can't be distorted, and that means pressure. Immense pressure. Think about it this way. If you were metal and you were being forged into a blade meant to cut through illusion itself, would you expect that process to be gentle? Would you expect the fire to be mild, the hammer to be soft? No. You would know that to hold that edge, to carry that sharpness, you must first endure the heat that melts falsehood and the strikes that shape clarity. That's what's happening to you. That's why your life doesn't look like anyone else's. That's why your healing process doesn't follow the rules. Because you're not here to be a replica. You're here to be a weapon of awakening, and that takes a different kind of pain, a sacred, precise, soul-carving pain. But here's the twist. The breaking isn't just for your benefit. It's not just about becoming stronger. It's about becoming clearer. Because your role among the dark chosen ones is not to hoard power, it's to transmit it. To walk into rooms and shift the frequency just by existing, to speak words that shatter illusions, to hold space for truths that most people would run from. And to do that, you must first face those truths inside yourself. You must become intimate with your own darkness, your own chaos, your own forgotten rage and buried grief, not to heal them away, but to know them deeply enough that they no longer sabotage your mission. This is why your triggers have been so intense lately, why you've been feeling emotions that seem ancient, disproportionate, hard to explain. It's because the deeper layers are surfacing, not to punish you, but to prepare you. Because you can't guide others through their shadows if you've refused to face your own. You can't carry the sword if you're still afraid of its blade. So the universe gives you these moments not to test your strength, but to reveal it, to show you what's real underneath all the spiritual masks. And here's where it gets even more real. Some of the people you thought were your allies will begin to fall away, not because they're bad, but because they can't walk with you where you're going. They were part of your preparation, not your activation. And if you try to bring them into the next realm of your becoming, you'll feel resistance, guilt, even psychic backlash. That's how you'll know the time has come. You're crossing into territory where only those who've been broken and reforged can breathe the air. It's not elitism, it's energetic physics. You're not better than them, you're just on assignment. And that assignment has a cost. So let me ask you this now, and I want you to feel it in your bones, not just your intellect. What if your heartbreak wasn't meant to destroy your hope, but to break your heart open enough to hold a bigger purpose? What if everything that left you bleeding was actually carving space for something vast, ancient, and wildly sacred to enter you? Because that's the truth no one tells you. Being chosen feels like being cursed. Until you remember why you were chosen. Until you realize that your suffering was never random. It was a map, a blueprint, a coded sequence designed to awaken dormant parts of you that textbooks can't touch and teachers can't activate. Only life could do that. Only pain could reach that deep. And now here you are, still standing, still breathing, and more than that, still listening. That alone proves you passed more tests than you know. You didn't run. You didn't numb out. You didn't deny the call. You're here, on the threshold of something most will never see, and fewer will ever accept. But you're ready for more, aren't you? Signs in the madness. How the hidden forces communicate with the initiated. 7. There's a moment in every true initiation where your mind begins to fracture, not in the way that leads to collapse, but in the way that leads to expansion. It begins when reality stops behaving the way it used to. Time warps, symbols repeat, people say things that feel like echoes from another life. You think you're losing your grip, but what's actually happening is far more extraordinary. You're being contacted, coded and calibrated by something beyond the veil. The very forces shaping your path, the architects, the shadows, the silent choir behind your destiny, have begun speaking to you. And they don't use language the way we do. They speak in madness, in patterns, in whispers that arrive through chaos. And if you're not grounded, if you're still clinging to logic, you'll miss the transmission entirely. This is the third sign, an unmistakable one. You begin to notice that life is no longer random. There's a current beneath the surface and it's pulling you deeper. You see the same numbers over and over. 1111.333, 144. You hear a song you haven't heard in years, and the lyrics feel like they were written for you. You have dreams that bleed into waking life. You think of someone and they call. You feel like you're walking through a movie scripted by something intelligent, something watching you through reality itself. And if you've experienced this, you're not crazy. You're tuned in. The madness is the message. But here's the thing most never realize. These signs are not about comfort. They're about capacity. The hidden forces are not sending you messages to entertain you. They're testing your ability to see, to interpret, to act. Because if you are to be one of the rare few who can operate between worlds, you must learn to read the matrix like scripture. Every glitch, every reversal, every coincidence, it's all code. And if you dismiss it as just a coincidence, you fail the test. If you obsess over it without integrating it, you also fail. The signs are not the goal. They are gateways. They're designed to wake up something ancient in your blood, something that remembers how to read the river of time without drowning in it. You'll know the communication has begun when your dreams become too vivid to ignore, when you wake up in sweat, in tears, in awe, when your body reacts before your mind does. You'll feel things in your gut, warnings, invitations, revelations. You'll say things you didn't plan to say, as if something else is speaking through you. And in those moments you must ask yourself, do I trust this? Do I trust myself enough to follow what can't be proven? Because this is where the path splits. The ones who need proof retreat, the ones who trust the frequency advance. And yes, there will be moments where you doubt everything. You'll question your sanity. You'll wonder if you're making it all up. That's natural. That's part of the coding. The forces behind your awakening don't just want to see if you can receive signals. They want to see if you can hold them. Can you hold the mystery without answering it too quickly? Can you sit in the unknown without collapsing into fear or fantasy? Can you decipher the message without turning it into dogma? That's what separates the curious from the chosen. What's crucial to understand is that these signs won't always feel spiritual. Sometimes they come through breakdowns, a car crash, a betrayal, a panic attack that feels like death but births a truth inside you that you can never unsee. Other times they come through beauty so overwhelming it breaks your heart open in gratitude, a sunset that feels like a memory of another world, a stranger's gaze that feels like home, a moment of silence that stretches into eternity. These are not random, they are touch points, evidence that you are being watched, guided, and remembered. Let me ask you something, and I want you to answer honestly, even if only to yourself. How many times have you felt like there was something watching you, not with malice, but with purpose? How many times have you felt like your life was a message you hadn't fully decoded yet? Because if you felt that, then I need you to hear this. You're not alone, and you're not insane. You're being trained to read the invisible, to become fluent in the language of the ineffable. That's part of your rare role. You're not just here to awaken, you're here to guide others through the veil. And to do that, you must first pass through it yourself. So when the signs come, and they will come, don't just collect them. Respond, change something, speak something, move somewhere, cut something off, begin something impossible, because the signs are not passive. They are assignments, and the more you respond, the stronger the signal becomes, the more clearly they can speak, the more precisely you are shaped. This is the realm of the dark chosen. We don't just pray to the divine, we interface with it. We don't wait for miracles, we become them. And now, if you've truly understood what's unfolding, then you're ready for the next sign, the one most people will never accept. The final severance, why you must lose everything that isn't real. There comes a moment on this path when the universe stops whispering and begins cutting, not out of cruelty but out of necessity. If you've made it this far, if you've survived the signs, the madness, the breaking, the decoding, then you are now standing at the edge of the final preparation, the most painful, most liberating, most irreversible threshold, the severance of the false self. And nothing, absolutely nothing, can prepare you for it. This is not a metaphor, this is not a gentle release, this is not about letting go in the therapeutic sense, this is a cosmic amputation. It is the moment when everything that was never truly you, every identity shaped by survival, every relationship built on illusion, every belief inherited from fear must die. Not gradually, not softly, but violently if necessary. because this is the price of stepping into your rare role among the dark chosen ones. It's not just about receiving power, it's about becoming unrecognizable to the system you were born into. The truth is, most people never make it here. Most people turn back at the gate, because this stage demands something sacred and terrifying: the willingness to lose everything that made you feel safe but kept you small. And not just willingness, it demands action. You will be asked to walk away from people you love, from dreams you built, from versions of yourself that once made perfect sense. And it will hurt deeply. But that pain is not punishment, it is surgery. You are being carved into a vessel that can hold a frequency the world is not ready for. And to carry that, you must be empty of everything that dilutes it. You may find that certain friendships begin to feel hollow, that conversations drain you instead of feeding you. That jobs, places, even spiritual communities you once adored now feel like cages. You'll feel the pull of the old world, its comfort, its logic, its promises, but you'll also feel the burn of your becoming, and in that space you will face the deepest question of all. Will you betray your becoming to preserve your belonging, or will you walk alone to find the truth of who you are becoming? This is the final test, because what you're being prepared for is not just rare, it's dangerous. Dangerous to illusion, dangerous to stagnation, dangerous to the system. The dark chosen ones are not here to fit in. We are here to intervene, to disrupt, to reveal. And that means we cannot carry the weight of false loyalty, half-truths, or outdated roles. Every attachment that isn't rooted in your soul's truth will become a liability, and the forces guiding your path, they will remove them if you won't. Not to hurt you, but to free you. And yes, you will grieve. You will question everything. You will feel like you're dying, because you are. A version of you is dying, the version that was built to survive, to please, to perform, to be accepted. And as that version dissolves, something ancient begins to rise. Something that doesn't need approval, something that doesn't need validation, something that remembers its assignment. You may find yourself spending more and more time alone, not because you're depressed, but because you're being recalibrated. You're being taught to hear your soul in silence, to feel your guides in the void, to sense the next move without anyone else confirming it for you. This is when your true power starts to emerge, not as a concept, but as a force, a knowing, a frequency that cannot be faked. So let me ask you one final question, the one that only the brave will answer with honesty. If everything that isn't real in your life were taken from you tomorrow, every mask, every comfort, every illusion, would you still know who you are? Would you still stand in your truth? Would you still move forward even if no one recognized you anymore? Because that's what's being asked of you now. Not to become more, but to become true. To become empty enough for the real signal to pour through. To become sovereign enough that nothing outside of you can define your worth, your mission, or your next step. This is the final sign, when the old world begins to fall away, and you let it, not with bitterness, but with reverence, not with fear, but with fire, because you finally understand you were never meant to fit in. You were meant to awaken the matrix by stepping outside of it completely. And now the role is waiting, The forces are watching. The codes are ready. The only thing left is you. Will you answer?